Habakkuk starts out in chapters 1 and some of 2. Starts out rather, can I use the word arrogantly? He starts out saying, Lord, look at Israel, look at Judah, look at the sin that's going on here, look at the wickedness, and you don't appear to be doing anything. And another thing that he says, when the Lord speaks to him, he's quite taken aback and angry in a sense with God, because the Lord says to him, I'm going to send the Chaldeans, Babylonians, in to destroy the kingdom. I'm going to destroy Judah and take them away, as I've said by all my prophets up until now. So Habakkuk is not impressed. And we'll just read chapter 2. In chapter 2, it's only a short book, but in chapter 2, Habakkuk's laid out his argument before the Lord, saying, Lord, look what's going on, nothing's happening. And then he waits and says, I'm going to wait for the Lord to speak to me. So chapter 2, verse 1, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will say to me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. Verse 2, and the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth. In other words, make it plain so someone can understand it and speak it plainly. Verse 3, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and shall not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. So the Lord's saying there, what I prophesied is going to come to pass. It looks like I'm taking my time, but everything that I say will come to pass. Now this is the bit, verse 4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Yea, also, because he transgresses by wine, he is a proud man, neither keeps at home, who enlarges his desire as Sheol, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, that gathers unto himself all nations, and heaps unto himself all people. The Lord here is he's showing Habakkuk the difference between, there's two types of people in this world, those that are disobedient to God and proud, and those that have faith. And that's why he's saying, the just shall live by faith. I'm bringing this out, I'm saying this because I guess the crux of what I wanted to bring this morning was that we, as believers, the only way we can live is by faith. Does anyone get Danny Nalia's news things? If you read all those things, it's quite scary what's going on, isn't it? And seeing all these things and seeing the world changing as it is. I mean, you shared this morning about school. How much that's changed since I was at school. We had to go to scripture when I was at school. I enjoyed it, but a lot didn't. But kids were made to go to scripture. How the world has changed and is changing. So I guess the crux of what I was wanting to bring today was the fact that as believers, we have to live by faith. If we're going to go on in the Lord and we're going to be ready for his return, we have to be living by faith. It's the only way. So here the Lord is speaking to Habakkuk and he's saying to him, there's two types of people. There's those who are proud. And he's speaking of the people in Judah, the people of God. They were proud. They were disobedient. They'd begun to do all the sins of those that were driven out before them. And that's why if you read through this, if you get a chance to study it, one of Habakkuk's arguments before the Lord, he's saying to him, Lord, it doesn't seem fair. You're going to bring in the Babylonians, who are a very cruel and vicious race. And they're coming in. Why are they going to bring your judgment upon your people? So it's one of the three things that Habakkuk says to the Lord. He says, Lord, number one, why aren't you doing anything? Judah's in sin, there's innocent blood's being shed everywhere. No one's keeping the law. People rob from one another. The second thing is, he says, Lord, why are you using the wicked to chastise the righteous? And the third thing he says is, Lord, these ones that you're using, they're idolaters. They trust in themselves. It says there in verse 5, he gathers all nations and heaps them up to himself. Later on it says that they believe in themselves and they trust in their strength. So the reason I'm speaking about Habakkuk here is because Paul drew on this to bring out the truth that the just shall live by faith. And in this day and age, we need faith more than ever. I don't know what you're facing in your life. We all face different things at different times, don't we? There was a time in my life, I remember, when everything was just seemed pretty perfect. Anyone have one of those times? The Lord gives you, He does that, doesn't He? He gives you times when everything's just wonderful. Do you remember when you first got saved? You know, there's that time when, and the Lord, you cry out and the Lord answers every prayer. It's normally very quick, isn't it? Yep. But as you grow and mature in Him, it's like a baby. I mean, Tam and I have a baby coming. You know, when a baby cries, you don't just leave them crying for hours and don't care. You minister to that child, don't you? You change its nappy when it needs it. I mean, it'd be nothing worse than a 25-year-old needing their nappy changed, would there? We have to grow. Yes. No, don't go there. I remember, I'll probably give it away how old I am now. I remember going to Warwick House when Pastor Gibbs was there. Who remembers Warwick House? Oh, everybody. Really. I remember going there one time and he was preaching on, the message was called Think Big. You don't remember that? I'm good for remembering messages. He was preaching on Think Big. I remember I was sitting next to, do you remember those pillars in the building? I was sitting next to a pillar and he was preaching and saying, you know, we've got a big God, we have to have a big faith. A big faith in a big God. We don't want to be limited, we don't want to limit the Lord in any way. You've got to have a big faith, and he really laboured that for a long time. Anyway, I remember the next Friday night, a lady came forward, she gave a testimony. She said, I went out, she said, I only got saved a couple of weeks ago. She said, I believe that, you know, we've got to have a big faith in a big God. And she said, I went out, she said, Lord, I have a need for money. And she put every cent she had on a horse called Think Big in the Melbourne Cup. I remember Pastor Gordon roared his head laughing. He said, isn't God good? But, you know, you sit there thinking, oh, okay. But it's like it, isn't it? When you're first saved, the Lord's there and He's doing these things. But see, He wants us to mature and grow, doesn't He? He wants us to get to the point where no matter what happens, what's threatened, what the world's doing, what's happening in our families, whatever is going on, that we believe God. And this is, Habakkuk was in an interesting position. He was crying out for the Lord because the Lord had showed him and showed the other prophets that he knew the other prophets were around, that some were before him. He was right at the end, just before the Lord sent the Babylonians in. And he's saying, Lord, it doesn't seem fair. There's a couple of things that I don't think is fair. Why are you doing what you do the way you're doing it? And I think that's the message that we need to pick up today, that God is sovereign. He's got a plan for this earth. He's got a plan for each one of us. And if you pick up anything from what I'm saying this morning, I want you to pick up that, you know, you are precious to God, and that the Lord, the living, the God of heaven, lives within you. And sometimes we can lose sight of that. Everything in this world seems to be diametrically opposed to faith and to believing in God, doesn't it? I mean, if you're going to turn on the TV, turn it straight off again, because everything's aimed at people to convince them that there is no God, and if there is a God, He doesn't do anything anyway. Have you ever noticed that? You turn the TV on. I mean, I don't watch much TV, but I don't really get time, but the other night, Tammy was feeling a bit, wasn't morning sickness, it was evening sickness. And she just felt like sitting. So I sat with her and I just flipped the TV on to see what was on, and then I turned it off again, because the first thing that came on was, I don't even know what show it was, some girl was found out she was pregnant, and the first thing they did was talk about aborting the baby to her. And you have a choice. And, you know, all the stuff that is going out to our young people today, we don't have a choice, do we? Yeah, sorry, getting off the track. So anyway, here's Habakkuk. He's in that interesting position where judgment is coming.